Okay, before we start talking about more recent history, and when I say more recent history, I mean the last 150 years, we need to go all the way back to the onset of Islam. After the Prophet Muhammad died, there was a split in mentality. There was a group, the Shiite Ali, which we now know as the Shias, and that means from the family or partisans of Ali. The Shias believe that you have to have direct lineage from the Prophet in order to be an authority in Islam. The Sunnis believed that, and that's why Ali is so important and just the central figure in the split between Islam 1400 years ago. Ali was he was Muhammad's cousin, and he was also Muhammad's in-law, which gives you an idea of how things worked back then, and in some ways work still today. Anyway, these people became known as the Shias. The second group are the Sunnis. Now, the Sunnis believe that any man can be worthy of leading the faith, the Islamic faith. The Sunnis, lineage isn't as important as spirituality was to the Sunnis back then. There's a very violent struggle that happened between the two groups. The Sunnis won out in that violent struggle, and that's why you see that Shias are less Arabic and a minority and don't have a whole lot of sway in Arabia. That's why Sunni leaders are everywhere. This is important, and this is why this is important. The dictators in the Middle East are Sunni, with the exception of what's going on in Persia, which are Shia. Well, it's very important to the Sunni leaders that Iraq remain in Sunni hands. The Sunnis in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, and Iraq, and all throughout the Middle East find the Shia leadership in Iraq to be a threat to who they are. And that it goes back to the Pal Doctrine I was talking about in the previous video, in that the reason we allowed the Shias to get slaughtered in 91 was to calm down our Sunni oil allies. And when I say our, I'm not just talking about the United States, I'm talking about the globe. Seriously. The Persians are Shia, and that's why we've had a policy of isolation of Persia for quite some time. When the Persians were our allies, when the Pahlavi dynasty was around, it wasn't that much of a concern. As soon as those Shias turned and became a theocracy, then the Sunni Shia split became very important. And what I'm going to try to show over the next group of videos, I have no idea how many it's going to be, is why the rise of Shiism, why the rise of power bases in Shiism, and why the Shia majority, and why that is so important to this conflict, and why there's a civil war going on right now. It's a civil war that on one side, from the Sunni side, is being funded and manipulated by Al-Qaeda, by the Saudi Arabians, and why on the Shia side it's being manipulated by the Iranians, and why this conflict and this civil war is nothing new, and that it's been going on for a long time. And the only reason that it didn't go on under Hussein was because that Sunni leader, that Ba'athist secular Sunni leader, decided to suppress it by murdering hundreds of thousands of Shias. So, I guess if you see that as peace, well, that's on you. If you see that as a good thing, well, that's on you. That's something you have to decide for yourself. But I just first wanted to start out with a little introduction of why the Sunni-Shia split happened, and the differences between Sunniism and Shiism aren't are much more complicated now than they were between the Hussein Ali split back in 1680s or 1630s, or anyway, in the 7th century. And now it has more to do with tradition and the way you should worship. And I tell you, it's very similar toward the spiritual split between the Reform movement and Christianity. That, you know, the ideologies are very similar. You know, one side believes in faith alone will find you salvation, and the other side believes in faith and good works will find you salvation. I guess the problem is on the one side of Islam, good works includes jihad and fatwas that include violence. So that's a little introduction to the Sunni-Shia split. In my next vlog, I'm going to talk about the fall of the Ottoman Empire, why that is so important to this conflict, and where we go from there. Okay?